The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. They are accused of war crimes in Gaza and crimes against humanity. The court also issued a warrant for the head of Hamas's armed wing, Mohammed Deif, over the attack on October 7th of last year. Netanyahu has described the accusations against him as disgraceful and anti-Semitic. U.S. President Joe Biden has called the warrant outrageous. Other governments have acknowledged that they would be obliged to arrest the Israeli leader if he entered their country.
They are on the arrest list of the International Criminal Court. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Both are charged with directing attacks on civilian populations and using starvation as a weapon of war. Netanyahu described the move as anti-Semitic.
The truth is simple. No war is more just than the war that Israel has been waging in Gaza after Hamas attacked us unprovoked, launching the worst massacre against the Jewish people since the Holocaust.
The ICC charges were met with outrage in Israel.
This doesn't really have any validity. Netanyahu and the Israeli Defense Force are doing their very, very, very best for the state of Israel.
These are not war crimes. Any other state would have done it and worse.
And in war-torn Gaza, there was skepticism.
We, the Palestinian people, the majority of our community, feel we cannot place much trust in the International Criminal Court. We've endured wars, massacres, grief and pain because of Netanyahu. Experience has shown us that these courts have been established mainly to enforce arguments and laws on weaker countries. It's clear that these charges will never be enforced because no measures in favor of the Palestinian people are ever implemented. Decisions against the Palestinian people are immediately put into action, while those in favor of the Palestinian cause are impossible to enforce.
Israel has rejected the court's jurisdiction and denies committing war crimes in Gaza. The United States has also expressed deep concerns over the court's decision.
We fundamentally reject the court's decision to issue arrest warrants for senior Israel officials. We remain deeply concerned by the prosecutor's rush to seek arrest warrants and the troubling process errors that led to this decision.
Neither Israel nor the U.S. are members of the ICC. It is, however, backed by 124 signatory states, including all nations belonging to the European Union. Joseph Borrell, the EU's top diplomat, reminded all 27 member countries of their duty to abide by the court's ruling.
This decision is a binding decision, and all states parties of the court, which include all members of the European Union, are binding to implement this court decision.
Israel's leader, meanwhile, says he will not be deterred until Israel's war objectives are met.
Let's cross straight over to Jerusalem, where our correspondent Emily Gordine is standing by. Emily, tell us more about Israel's reaction to the ICC arrest warrants.
Well, it's been met with widespread anger and condemnation, really, Terry. If you look at what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said, he called it a dark day in the history of humanity, and he also went on to call the decision anti-Semitic. An official statement from the Prime Minister's office also slammed the decision, saying that Israel, quote, rejects with disgust the absurd and false actions and charges against it by the International Criminal Court. Now, this is echoed basically by other members of Netanyahu's cabinet, and also Yoav Gallant, of course, has come out also criticising the arrest warrants, calling the decision a disgrace, and also criticising the fact that in this case the state of Israel was essentially set on or put on the same footing or set equal with Hamas, which is considered a terrorist organisation by many Western countries. Now, across the political board in Israel, this decision to issue the these arrest warrants has been criticized. It's been met with outrage, with the exception of one party, which is the Hadash party, the left-wing party in Israel, which has come out saying that the decision was made, the court in The Hague decided according to clear evidence. But again, that's a minority really in the grand scheme in Israel. But of course, this doesn't change the fact that these arrest warrants put a diplomatic strain on Israel internationally. And of course, it also shifts the way in which it is perceived by other countries.
Now, a Hamas leader has also been indicted. How are Palestinians reacting to the court's decision?
Well, according to the Israelis, Mohammed Deif was killed a few months ago by the Israeli Defense Forces. And so really this only really puts the Israelis, namely Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, on the spot. And of course, many Palestinians welcome the decision, including Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, which has also urged members of the court to actually implement the decision. Now, Hussam Zomlot, the Palestinian ambassador to the UK and a very prominent Palestinian figure, has also come out saying that, quote, the ICC arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant is not only a step towards accountability and justice in Palestine, but also a step to restore the credibility of the rules-based international order and its judicial system. So I think genuinely this is a step that is welcomed by many Palestinians. Beyond that, of course, there is the looming question of how much of an effect it will have on the situation on the ground. In the last 24 to 36 hours alone, over 60 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli airstrikes in Gaza. Now we know from the UN that the people who are mostly affected by these airstrikes, people mostly killed by these airstrikes, are women and children. And of course, we also know that over the past few months, very little aid has been getting into Gaza, especially northern Gaza. So the situation on the ground remains incredibly bleak.
Emily, thank you very much. That was our correspondent in Jerusalem, Emily Gordine. And for more on this, we have our Middle East analyst, Shani Razanis, with us here in the studio. Shani, is this a turning point for Israel?
Well, not really. If you ask Netanyahu, everything Israel has done so far was according to the law, and it's flawless. He's, unequivocally, pushing away any accusations. He doesn't see any reason to change any of what has been done so far. And also, if you look at the responses from the international community, mostly from the Americans, the biggest supporter and ally of Israel, he has no reason to fear. Both administrations, Biden and the upcoming Trump administration, seem to be very much on Israel's side, very much against the court. We also know Trump, when he makes it to the White House, he has already sanctioned the ICC in the past, in 2020. So there's not much love there or respect to the ICC. And in that aspect, I don't see why for Netanyahu. Of course, the moral weight of this decision is something that cannot be, undermined. But at the same time, when it comes to the practicality of it, it doesn't seem like anything that's going to deter Netanyahu and his policies.
Israel and the U.S. are not members of the International Criminal Court, but more than 120 other countries, including Germany, are. Is Netanyahu worried that this arrest warrant could isolate him?
Well, I was just talking about the Israelis seem to be very confident in their actions, but I think there's no doubt if you talk to leading people in the Israeli prosecution, they are very much concerned about the possible, after effect of these warrants. First of all, more warrants coming out against leaders in the military, soldiers and generals. That's one thing that would be unprecedented. But then at the same time, also, this could have great effect when it comes to Israel ammunition and anything connected to weapons and, becoming a persona non grata or a country non grata, basically, for Israel is nothing that Israel wants. I think denying the need for, of Israel for support of the international community would be somewhat too, even for Israelis, sometimes, as it seems here, a bit too cocky.
So we have Israel's reaction. What are the Palestinians saying?
Well, it's a mixed bag. Of course, officially, the Palestinian Authority welcomes that and sees it as a first step in restoring the faith in the international justice system and the ability for the Palestinians to sort of have some sort of a way to bring their grievances. But then at the same time, there's quite an understanding of the forces that are working behind the scene, like the Americans, that are, trying to basically make this decision become completely irrelevant, and there's an acknowledgement of that. The Palestinians, however, see that their attempts to go through international community bodies like the ICC, the UN, seem to be the only way for them to get any acknowledgement and official support. So we might be seeing them taking the conclusion from this and pushing further into the UN, trying to become a full member country and not just an observer force as they are right now.
Is this development at the ICC likely to have any impact on Israel's war in Gaza or efforts to broker a peace deal?
Well, if Israel would, change its ways in Gaza, it would be actually admitting any wrongdoing, which is something that Israelis are very far from doing. However, as we said, this could have consequences when it comes to weapons and support for... Israel needs support from the world, from Germany, from the US, but not only in order to sustain its war effort. And this could be very much in jeopardy, and this could affect the war. Will this push for a ceasefire? I think Netanyahu has shown so far, and it seems to be persistent in that the only forces that move him or motivate him are the inner coalition dynamics in Israel and not beyond. And in that aspect, they're all far to the right behind him. Even opposition members in Israel are behind Netanyahu and are against the court. So if there is a change to come in Gaza, it's not because of this, I'm afraid.
Shani, thank you very much for your analysis. That was our Middle East analyst, Shani Razanis.